flight 14 minutes an hour, and then we just went back. Like, wow.
Mä kysyn vaan, oliko kaikki ok ton ekan osalta? Ei mitään, niin eikä sulle mitään, että se toimi tois niin kuin setting. Joo, okei, hyvä. Samalla mennään sitten kaikissa. Joo. Could you, okay, so my microphone is on, so forget it. Just on time. I was just going to ask something personal from one of my colleagues when I luckily noticed that the microphone was on already, so we forget the question for the time being. Welcome all of you to the second dialogue at the Arctic Design Week. Arctic AHA dialogues, altogether 4. We had the first one about an hour ago, 2 hours ago in Finnish, and this one is the first in English. We'll have 2 more tomorrow, and they will be in English as well, with different invited experts, but the thematic will remain, the umbrella thematic will remain the same. We will always in these dialogues during this Arctic Design Week discuss climate change mitigation, sustainability, very common topics nowadays on everyone's lips, challenging topics, but it also makes sense that we do these discussions at Arctic Design Week especially. Arctic Design Week was we got started with the Design Week 13 years ago. And from the very beginning, sustainability was a theme we wanted to carry from one week to another. The reason being that at the time, 13 years ago, we started to discuss about Arctic design. And what Arctic design means is that design plays, and it has to play, a role in the sustainable development of the whole Arctic region. And we want to make sure that design really plays a role, that it has its abilities, it has its capacities, and with the design we can do what we can for the better Arctic. So it's a responsibility issue for the Arctic Design Week as well. Hence, sustainability has been carried on from one design week to another. And of course, we all know that at the moment in the world, climate change has only grown in importance. We know the urgency, we know that solutions are needed, and we want to discuss this thematic and theme with our invited experts and also with you in the audience. The theme for the Arctic Design Week itself this year is inspiring awareness. So we want to make sure that everyone has a possibility to take part in the discussions. We learn more, we know more, but also that we encourage as many as possible to take part in the dialogue. The format of the dialogue is the following. We have invited a few great experts. You see all of them here. In some of the dialogues we have experts invited also on Zoom. They would be behind our backs there on the screen if they were here. But for this dialogue we have been very lucky and we have all 4 experts with us in person. And the format is as follows. I have sent them and we have discussed tentative questions and issues and topics. I will initiate the dialogue, But this will not be a set of presentations. This will be a discussion, a dialogue. So each and all of the experts are allowed and encouraged to comment each other's speeches and talk. And likewise, you here with us in person, and all of you who are with us on the platform, following this with a stream, you are also invited to take part in the discussion. Here in the room, it's enough if you raise your hand. In the streaming part, you have to use the chat, and we have Anna here who will follow the chat, and whenever there's an interesting comment or question, she will bring it up, and we will then share it and discuss it. So hopefully it's a simple system. Hopefully it's clear. If not, you ask. And the first thing we will do is I will ask you all to introduce yourselves. I asked you already before to talk about the work you do and also your own personality, what you do privately, if you want to share things like that. But I would like everyone to get to know you a bit before we hit the challenging questions that are in hand with our dialogue. So maybe Marlou, maybe I can ask you to begin.
Yes, of course. So I'm Marlou. I'm from Eindhoven, the Netherlands, and I'm a program leader at Baltan Laboratories. We are a cultural lab, and we are focusing on societal topics. And lately, well, sustainability being one of them, obviously. And what we've been focusing on lately is to design formats, to gather different disciplines, people from different disciplines to discuss these urgent and also very difficult topics on more on a personal level. So we are moving from interdisciplinary to more indisciplinary, is what we call it. So designing temporary spaces to remove for a limited amount of time disciplinary knowledge. Of course, expertise and disciplinary knowledge is, very much needed, but we think to really engage in a how do you say that, in a personal conversation and a dialogue, as what we're doing here, it helps to kind of take off your uniform, be a person, learn from each other, be open to hear from each other, and then when you go back to put on your coat again. On a personal note, I'm mostly a mom of 2 very small kids, so I'm really busy with that as well. And that, of course, also really made me think differently about this whole climate change issue. So for me, that's always in the back of my mind.
Thank you, Marlou.
Okay?
Thank you. And I have to say that I quite understand how having children of your own makes you think differently. And maybe even more responsibly. I'm a recent grandmother. I'm a grandmother with a 1-year-old grandchild. And the day he was born, my life changed as well. And I realized that I think about sustainability, climate change in a very different manner than what I did before. So it really has an impact. Okay, Erson, you're next.
Lovely. Good afternoon to everyone. First of all, I feel very, very honored to be here. So thanks a lot, Päivi, for the invitation. I'm a Mediterranean, originally from Albania, who just suddenly ended up in the north 3.5 years ago. And today I'm really excited about the weather. I have these drawbacks of the weather in the south. I'm representing Lapland University of Applied Sciences, as my official work title is specialist, but actually I'm more a generalist. I'm not focusing on very specific stuff. And more specifically, representing a Frostbit Software Lab, one of the largest RDI units, let's say even in Finland. We have a team of over 43 developers, designers, graphic designers, web developers, etc. So we have quite a nice hub here, and we're focusing on different digital solutions. I have a background in psychology, media education, and a self-taught service design. So I've tried to blend all of this knowledge together, and recently, of course, it's very relevant that whenever we talk about sustainability and climate change, we mention all heavily technology and what is the role of technology in that case. Currently, I'm involved and mostly working with extended reality projects and how can we use these technologies to somehow touch upon these remote collaboration, remote learning, and try to decrease the effects of emissions. I'm very happy to share some concrete use cases today that we are working for. I would really love that we have some kind of presentation there, because it's always nicer to show things than just talk about them. For example, we're working on a web tool on, especially in Eastern Lapland, where we are connecting the local municipalities with entrepreneurs in order to regarding the procurement. So how can we make the procurement more sustainable to provide more data, more sustainable decision to the local municipalities. So I'm very happy to share what we are actually working on, some concrete case, and maybe that's an inspiration for all of you. I really love sauna and well, yes, for sure. And well, the first thing now when I looked at the question that Päivi mentioned in the beginning, I come from a, let's say, contrasting culture compared to Finland, but I found so much synergy. Although in the beginning, the first time I came to Helsinki, it was so silent that I was like, okay, what is this? And then next day I came to Rovaniemi, it was even more silent. So I have realized that moving to Arctic actually has created this completely different point of view and perspective on the world, and blended very well two contrasting cultures, but which complement, in my opinion, very well each other. Nice to be here.
Thank you, Erson. And I'm sure we will dig deeper into these contrasting things you started to talk about already. Mika.
Yeah, thank you. It's really lovely to be here today. I'm Mika Niemi. I'm the CEO and founder of Flatlight Creative House, and also the founder of Why Not. So I basically have two hats. Flatlight is about 50 years old company. Nowadays we call ourselves Creative House. I come from filmmaking background, and also nowadays we do brands and experiential spaces as well. And Why Not is a co-working space here in Rovaniemi. So I'm a local and nice to be here. About personal stuff, I love snowboarding, especially snow surfing, and I have two lovely daughters and my wife here in Rovaniemi. That's about it. I will go more into concrete stuff later.
Great,
Thanks.
Thank you, Mika. And last but not least, José.
So hello everyone. I guess I'm the young kid in the block. My name is José Reis. I'm Portuguese from Porto. And I'm associated and representing here PDF, which is Porto Design Factory, in the context of the RegionArts program, that we had some activities jointly. In terms of what we do, what I do at PDF, now currently I'm involved with RegionArts and with bridging the gap in our northern region between artists, creative industries and ICT companies. And looking forward now into this implementation phase to actually move on with our action plan, which has some interesting aspects to it, I think. Besides that, and before joining this program, I'm also responsible for educational programs. So my background is in industrial design, and I'm very passionate about drawing, 3D modeling, prototyping, and started out as a student in PDF, and then moved on to mentoring the current students. Although pandemics, COVID came in and we haven't have much students in the last 2 years, but that gives us a reason to start fighting again now to improve for the future. On a more personal note, I live together with my girlfriend in Porto and my younger brother, who I might say he's an inspiration as well in terms of climate change, and he's a good activist and just turned vegan, so he's trying to convert me as well. I'm not there yet, but I might in the future. Yeah, they are my support. And in terms of hobbies, I really like to restore things that have a vintage value to it. And I think it's really gratifying to use design for repair. And yeah, that's also part of my personal activity. So thank you.
Thank you, José. Do you have any questions in mind for any of the four here based on what you just heard? If not, then a couple of words about myself, because I will be moderating this, and it of course means that the way I see things and the way I interpret them affects the issues we are going to talk about. I have lived here in Rovaniemi in Lapland for the past 13 years. Before that, I lived in Helsinki in the south of Finland. From a more sort of wider perspective, a northern place, Helsinki as well, but from, of course, our Finnish perspective and from the Lapland perspective, that's really south. So this is the Arctic, and certainly living here has changed my perspective on the world a lot. Hence, I started to think about the concept Arctic design, and was happy and lucky to create the concept for Arctic Design Week 13 years ago. And it really made me much more aware of what is happening in the Arctic. 13 years ago already we realized that sustainability-related issues are important. Climate is changing. It has a lot of consequences. We didn't know, however, how quickly and how much things would change only in 13 years. So the themes we thought about at the time are much more topical today than what they were then. A lot has happened in Europe as well. And there's a reason why I wanted to pick reconnecting with nature as the theme for the dialogues. Reconnecting with nature is a topic discussed a lot in Europe at the moment. It relates to the very big umbrella approach in Europe to mitigate climate change. The ambition is 2050. The big ambition is related to 2050, and European Union has an extensive program to create actions to that direction. And one of the actions or set of actions is the new European Bauhaus initiative, which for the very first time actually in the Commission's history brings art, design and architecture in the forefront. So it's a bunch of projects, bunch of actions taking place during the next few years with the ambition that art, architecture and design will actively take part in when Europe tries to find solutions to mitigate climate change. And the very first phase of this process was to ask the European organizations, European individuals, what they would like to see happening from this point of view in relation to climate change mitigation. The Commission got more than 2,000 responses from different organizations, even individuals. And when the material, the more than 2,000 inputs were analyzed, they recognized 4 clear themes. And one of the themes Europeans were interested in and believed was essential and important was reconnecting with nature. And that was the time when I decided that I really want to discuss this further, because I'm certain, or at least I suspect, that our thinking here in the Arctic in relation to reconnecting with nature might be different from what individuals, organizations think about the same theme, let's say further to the south. And I might test that with you, Erson, and also actually everyone except with Mika, who is from here, whether that you find this a reasonable assumption, because the fact in the north, here in the Arctic, is that if we were not connected to the nature, we wouldn't even exist. Our connection to nature is essential to everything we do, and if we are to develop, we need to pay attention to nature at all times. So in that sense, you could even say that reconnecting with the nature doesn't really make sense in the Arctic, because we can't afford not to connect to the nature. But again, you can disagree freely, and you also in the audience feel free to say if you think that my sort of assumption doesn't really ring true. But in any case, this is what we will be discussing. What does reconnecting with nature really mean? And is there a role for organizations like your organizations? Mika represents a private business. Erson, you represent a university and research and development work. And Marlou and José, you represent development agencies, more or less, and also education. So different approaches, different bodies, and your work contains different things. But let's sort of keep this theme in mind, that reconnecting with nature, does that ring a bell in what you do? And if it does, how does that show? And obviously, we will also discuss, in the sense of climate change mitigation as well, what are you doing exactly at the moment? What does it mean to your organization, both from the point of view of the work you do with your clients, your projects, etc., but also from the point of view of the organization as well. Because it's one thing to work round sustainable development, mitigate climate change in your projects. It's another thing to do that for your own organization and in your own organization. So it's two different processes, and I encourage you to touch both of them. And then we will have a look at the future. What do you think will happen in the future? What are the challenges you will have to tackle, you imagine and believe you will have to tackle in the future as well? And the same goes with you in our audience, both online and here. Think about the same issues, and if you want to share your own thoughts, you are more than welcome to comment every one of our experts at any time. And Anna keeps an eye on the chat. So if it would be great to hear a bit more about the work you do. How does that how does that relate to sustainable development, climate change mitigation, and what are the current actions you are taking? So would very much like to hear every one of you to talk a bit about this. Maybe the reverse order. José. Marlou gets a bit more time to think now.
Okay. So first, I think on a more personal note, also I can take from my experience on the first contacts with Finland. I'd just like to comment on what you were saying about your relation with nature here. Back in 2016, 2017, I was a student collaborating not here but with Helsinki with Aalto University, and that was the first time I came to Finland and contacted really with your culture and your country. I like history very much, and there are a couple of examples in history that we more Latin cultures to the south, we learned a lot from you guys here in the north. A couple of examples are, for example, our social security system. It came from you, actually. So some of our diplomats and governments officers, they came here and they learned from you and they migrated the system there. So that was a positive aspect. In something I would like to comment that I immediately noticed that relationship you have with nature on the first time I step foot here in Finland. I know Helsinki is a more urban center, a bit bigger. But I had the chance to travel, for example, to Vantaa and to other areas that were a bit more to the country, and I saw and I could notice that I visited some small shops, artisan shops, and I saw, for example, in terms of design, you have a very artisan-like, very of your context design here. And that was like a fresh air for me at the time, because I was just coming out of industrial design school, and it was nice to have this culture shock, and in terms of product and in terms of learning from your practices, and also in terms of your forestry. So you have a vast amount of land filled with forest, and of course your country is much bigger than ours. So Portugal, it's quite small. But in terms of geography, it's also a bit different. It's more hilly-like, not as plain as here. And so, and it's a very old country in the sense that our urban centers, they are hard to modify now. So I'm guessing your country is more recent, maybe, in terms of infrastructures. You kind of like built already thinking ahead. And that I think that was a good plan, and you had a good chance, and you're doing it well. In our case, for example, talking about tackling climate change, whenever in Portugal we have some, I would say our greatest difficulties besides the bureaucracy is, really physically, how can you make the change? For example, in terms of transportation, in terms of adjusting cities, in terms of adjusting habits. But I think there we have something to learn from you, I think. Regarding my personal activity really in the Polytechnic, the pandemic was tough on us, especially PDF, overall in our institution, but especially PDF. We had the chance in the past, up until 2019, we had the chance to collaborate a lot in projects, and specifically with one which was challenge-based innovation, a collaboration between us, CERN in Switzerland, Melbourne in Australia, and a few other countries like Germany or Barcelona. And in those programs, we had our students thinking about good solutions to tackle the Sustainable Development Goals using CERN technology. And so that was a good example of a partnership we had in the past. Sadly, in the last 2 years, we haven't been able to run it, but I think that's one of our good case studies.
José, can I just interrupt
Sure.
you there? What was the reason, in fact, that you haven't been able to carry on with that collaboration?
So in terms of the program structure in itself, one of the difficulties in our bureaucratic system in our institution is this type of multidisciplinary projects. They are hard to certify. So it's a bit different than what you have here. So you have a major, minor educational system from what I understood so far. And that allows you and your students, for example, to have a main road as your background, but then you can also fetch some knowledge here, some knowledge there through a small project or collaboration with a company. And I think that's very important. And we didn't have that model in Portugal. It's still a traditional education, seated classroom, learn what you came here to learn, take your degree, and then go to the job market. And I mean, I can say even for myself, because I was a student, very quickly started to accompany students, and I could easily then grasp, being on the other side, that I think, in my opinion, this model, traditional model, it's not prepared anymore for the job market. So job market is asking for versatile people that have the ability to adapt in different situations. They have a critical thinking, creative thinking as well. And they are able to work with others. So engineers, designers, business. This has been, at least for me, the topic for the last 5 years. And we have been implementing it through extracurricular projects. but it's not easy to yet to involve teachers, to involve schools into redirecting their students to us, or vice versa, getting teachers to collaborate, giving lessons. So that's a big part of what we are doing now. We have been going through some changes. PDF is not PDF anymore, just PDF. It's a bigger structure. And yeah, maybe I can just, because I think you also need the chance to talk. I talk too much, I'm sorry. Just to wrap up, biggest change so far that I think we can say now is, besides being just PDF Creative and Design Center, we are Portic. It's a Porto Research Technology and Innovation Center. It's PDF plus a lot other research centers in the most different fields. For example, we are now collaborating with biotechnological laboratory that has actually been conducting COVID-19 tests for our students and has been in the vanguard, at least in national territory, of creating alternative solutions for testing, for more rapid testing, different ways of testing. They just developed a sample that you can eat, for example, and it tells you the result. Don't know technicalities about it, but I know it's around that path. We also are collaborating with an clean energy focus center that performs various research on hydrogen, clean energy such as solar and wind power. They are also there, and our hope is that being on the same building, a bigger structure of synergies
will happen. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, José. We will come back to talk more about that definitely. Mika.
Yeah, I was thinking about the question, and regarding reconnecting the nature, I would like to tell a little story about my background, because I come from a snowboarding background, and that's really like essential thing in snowboarding is snow, and that's quite I would say topical regarding climate change as well. So in that sense, like, there's always been kind of how to say, a love for the snow for me, and in that sense also the nature has playing a big role in my professional and personal life as well. How I see reconnecting nature, how it's like, it's quite natural in Finland actually, as you said, but on the other hand, like, we've been doing a couple of projects that are really on that topic in a way. So we've been doing 2 seasons of a TV series called Metsien kätkemä in Finnish, and Back to Nature was the kind of international title. And the goal of that series actually was that to show a different side of nature places that has a touch for mythology and somehow has an interesting stories behind them. And that series was for the people who has actually lost the connection to nature. And it was really like on that topic.
Yeah.
And it was actually nice to hear stories that there was people that haven't really gone to nature at all. They were, you know, living in a city, having their normal life, hobbies there, everything was in the city, but they didn't really go to the nearby areas. And one story I heard was that they were looking at this one episode from Lohja area.
That's south of Finland.
Yeah, there's this old oak tree that is really remarkable, and they were like, just saw the TV series episode, and hey kids, now we need to go there. And they went immediately to that place, and after that they've been actually going more often to the nature. So in a way that's what we've been doing, inspiring people. We haven't really like because we do entertainment in that sense, and also communication, because we work with marketing and branding. So we basically inspire or help companies to communicate about these issues, and it's not easy. Communication and marketing, that's always a hard topic with the climate change, because some of companies really want to talk about sustainability, but they don't really do anything. So that's really like,
that's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's very interesting, because the previous dialogue, the first one we had 6 companies, basically local companies, either from north of Finland, either from Lapland or a bit south to Lapland, and there was a lively discussion on this topic as well, and the approach varies according to the field the company represents, and the depth of their involvement varies, of course, but all these 6 companies happened to have a very strong value-based operation. They operate very value-based, and what that obviously had affected is how they tune in with sustainability-related issues as well. So they were very committed, but that was because of their values. So that's interesting because we also touched the issue that this is not all companies, this is not all businesses. There are businesses greenwashing, there are businesses who might talk about it but don't really do anything about it. But do you see, Mika, in your work, because you work for clients from many fields, in fact, do you see a change there in this respect? Has the interest become stronger during the past years or not?
Regarding climate change and sustainability?
Yes.
Yes, obviously, like everybody wants to talk about sustainability, and that's the thing, like like you mentioned, that everyone needs to talk about it. It's kind of like needs to be there, but isn't it so that it needs action rather than talking? So that's something that obviously we can encourage, but they buy help from us to communicate something, so we can't really change their way of doing things. But obviously, I think still communication plays a huge role, because we are changing human behavior in the communication. So we are actually, like, even though the companies might not do it right, but we can still create a concept that is helping to change behavior, and in that change affect more than the company actions, so to say. So
that's a very interesting point, actually. And this was again discussed with someone earlier today, that that designers can really not change the companies, but I'm not quite sure that's true, because in many ways designers, as other professionals within companies as well, they actually have a lot of power if they want and decide to choose to use the power. So I sort of think as well that you have a lot of power in your relation to the businesses as well. I just wanted to, I raised my finger when you said that you have to do actions, not talk. I disagree there, because I agree in the sense that lip service is not useful, and that's about greenwashing, etc., etc. And if you only talk because you want to move your lips, then talking is not useful. But talking next to and also before actions is very important, because only through talking it through, only through having a discussion with other people, other organizations, you also learn to understand. So talking is not about talking only, it's about understanding. And before actions, you need understanding. So that's where I disagree, but I'm sure you didn't mean it that way either. But important to say, because this is why we are talking here. This is also because we want to create a situation where all of us have at least the possibility to understand a bit more, because you hear and you listen to people who think otherwise, or maybe not at all the same way as you do. But that adds to understanding, and that inspires awareness, which is the topic for the whole Arctic Design Week. Now, okay, so very interesting stuff. Erson.
Yes, again about the communication. I think now there is a lot of discussion, and we already know that the huge problem we're facing, we are not in the stage anymore that we need awareness, but we need action as well. And coming from a point of, okay, let's say representing research organization, we often create these bubbles that there is a lot of knowledge, there is a lot of awareness, but it stays there, and that's not sufficient. It should penetrate in the people, in the society, and unless we start to do that, we are not actually making any change. And in this case, it's critical to do the change. I think research has a fundamental role in this process, because we are tapping into something which is unknown for us, and we have to completely change the way we think. We have to change our mindset, and that requires a lot of thinking and a lot of processing. But I think the research alone by itself cannot. It's not enough. We have to, and I see really important role of the designers here, that the way we share the knowledge and the way we encourage the society to take action, that's really, really important. Of course, being in the heart of Lapland, or in the south of Lapland, as a research organization, of course, we have a huge responsibility and role in these efforts, from the teaching perspective, but also from the RDI perspective. And there is a lot of projects. I will probably mention most of them from our side. For instance, I already started to talk about this web application or tool, where we are trying to bring together all the local municipalities in Lapland together with entrepreneurs. So in order to make more sustainable public procurement. So basically, if you are a Rovaniemi municipality and you want to purchase salmon, tons of it, you would rather purchase it from Kemijärvi, which is 100 kilometers away, less than that, rather than northern Finland, because it's closer. It leads to less emissions, but also it means that the economy will stay nearby your area. So that's the approach. And in this case, we have not only gone there and said that, okay, we just care about sustainability. That's not enough, because businesses and companies have to survive, and they survive by making money. So one of the selling points is, of course, that the economical impact and employability stays in the region. We know that around 400 million euros go away from Lapland every year, basically, from purchases that they are made in different places. So we want to reduce that number and more, so we can consume more and more local
And
products.
who is we? We want to reduce. Who is we?
That is of course us as project leaders, but of course that's quite ambitious, and I will go more into detail sooner, that the reality is a bit different, but also other for example organizations such as Pro Agria and other organizations which are related to this public procurement in Finland. Then we always go to the topic of politics and economics, and how these things kind of make the change way more difficult. And to be honest, the change is very difficult. I have had I've gone meeting local reindeer herders as well as different entrepreneurs in Lapland as part of this project, and we ask, okay, why don't you put your products that that they can be sold there? And they have their everyday life. They have to survive. There are small companies, all of that. So it's very challenging. And as well, then from the municipalities or from the public organization point of view, they're like, we are used to these old traditional methods, and it's so difficult to change the system. But what we are offering actually is just a tool which give you concrete calculations that if you make two different tendering decisions, you can see which one is more sustainable, less emissions, more effective, and gives better economical number compared to the nearby area. That is one of the most recent cases. Actually, we are aiming to make a national-wide project, hopefully, and EU-wide, because this has sparked quite a lot of interest. It might contrast with the EU's open market, but that's also a question that we have in our mind, like, is that really the future? Then on the other hand, we're working a lot with autonomous driving, testing, basically. In a concrete project, we are creating a virtual testing site where there is a bus station located in Iceland, and basically the idea is that you can the buses will drive automatically as efficiently as possible, so they will avoid emissions and they go to charging automatically. Another project we have just almost finished is with some local companies in Lapland which do the car testing, proving grounds basically, and we created a virtual testing software basically that the companies do not need to come here and do a more extensive testing, but they can already pre-do the testing from Germany or from China, for instance, and we are actually expanding these collaborations as well. And boosted by the pandemic, we got into a lot more interest into all kinds of remote collaboration, remote simulations. We have created a huge digital twin of this, one of the district heating power plants in Rovaniemi. And the idea is that an operator which is based in Sodankylä does not need to come to train here to operate the power plant, but he can do it instead from Sodankylä. And we have to take into account that here in Lapland we have very sparsely populated areas and long distances to travel, though. That's a way to cut emissions. Another project, we have a lot of projects, that has just started is about related to the Muonio area. And
That's western Lapland.
And we are creating virtual reality visualization. How can you see actually how can you visualize the clean air? It's really challenged, but it's one of the areas which has one of the cleanest air in Finland, and we want to...
In the world.
Yeah, in the world, sorry. My mistake, in the world. So with the Finnish Meteorological Institute, so we want to visualize how clean the air is. It's going to be a challenge, but it's a very interesting project.
When you have that ready, I would be interested in seeing that, definitely. And I'm sure there are others who would like to see that as well.
I have a small comment on that one because it's really interesting from the kind of, because we are working with a lot of visual stuff and it's kind of everywhere else you will see something in the like meters or metering,
yeah.
but in that place you just hear nothing, and that's
it's
the like
so clean.
How do you visualize that? Like it's the kind of yeah, it's kind of like the opposite of statistic.
Yes, it's the opposite.
Like how zero looks.
That's a challenge. Of course, we might go a bit not just in virtual reality. For example, we have thought that there are some solution that you can actually integrate as part of the experience. One, it's an additional part of the headset that you can actually blow smell. So that's one of the ways. So we are also experimenting with that. But one of the ideas we have had related to that is actually storytelling and narrative about climate change and trying to put two perspectives, because that's a little bit targeted to the Asian and Chinese tourists that we have here, and how can we compare two different perspectives and two different worlds when it comes to air quality, and how important is that for, and even we are envisioning to kind of see what would be in 50 years, for example, if we go with this step of the climate change.
Just a note on the storytelling you just mentioned in the previous dialogue as well. There was a good question from the audience, and the person who presented it is sitting here as well. How do you the converted businesses, for example, they are easy because they are motivated, they have their values in the right place, but how do you convert the ones who don't really believe or do actions? And one comment from a very experienced expert in circular economy said that stories well, stories and examples, case studies, they are quite an effective way to make a change as well. So you are obviously doing exactly that. Marlou,
yes.
Your turn.
I'm sorry, baby. There's someone who has a comment.
Okay, sorry. Good. Go ahead. Shoot.
Yeah, I've actually thought a lot about how to visualize nothing. I studied philosophy, so that's it's a very interesting thing to me. And I think the way to do it is to take the opposite. So to take like pictures of like Chinese cities, or and in general it would be about like, I mean, I came here from Poland. And I immediately tasted the difference, but unfortunately we cannot visualize taste. But we can visualize smog or people who actually maybe have this first experience of clean air. And then it becomes visible. So
Thanks a lot.
A good point. Did you say that you come from Poland?
well, I'm actually Dutch,
Yeah.
but I live in Poland right now,
Okay.
in Poznan.
Okay, so maybe
Very.
all of you should start collaborating. Just a proposal. So maybe after this, during the break, you could have a talk.
For sure.
Yeah, sure.
Good. So, Marlou.
Yes, at Baltan, we're a cultural organization. So we started with initiating art projects or presenting art projects around this topic. And I think more than focusing directly on sustainability, we've been focusing on economy for the past years because of economy as a way that we designed actually together, the way of living together, our society. And also reclaiming that idea that we made this economy, you know, it's not that it was here magically, so we can also make it differently. So to give a bit of an example, how our perspective also changed on that is that in 2017, we started with a festival. It's called the Economia Festival. And the first edition, it was about economy without the economists on stage. So we really believe in this idea, as I said before, that you need to incorporate different disciplines, different ways of seeing, different ways of thinking to face and understand, but more importantly, I think, feel the urgency of the challenges that we have and the issues that we have. And from that, we are now moving in a bit of a slower pace, maybe. So we're developing learning communities under the umbrella of MEA, Make Economy Yours Again, it's called. So we're doing a series of gatherings with a small group of people online where we rehearse change. So we meet every week for 3 hours. We focus on different knowledges. We like to look also at marginalized knowledge to see, like, okay, not only scientific or rational knowledge, but embodied knowledge, indigenous knowledge. How can we look at these different ways of understanding the world and try to experience them, discuss them with each other, and see how could we make a change in our personal life. But I think that aspect of rehearsing, of taking the time to find a space where you can, you know, step out of reality for a while, because of course we know that, you know, businesses need to make money, people need to eat. This is all very true, but we firmly believe that we need to find a different way of understanding ourselves as human beings within the system, as part of nature. So not reconnecting with nature, but we are part of it. It's not something that's outside of us. We're just one among all the species that are here on this planet. But we happen to be the ones who are, you know, not doing such a good job. So we also have the responsibility to change that. And I think, well, at least from my view, the way we're doing it now is not working, clearly. There are a lot of problems. So then it makes sense to us, at least, to also create a space to listen to those who are not hearing. You know, there are other kinds of understanding the world, of relating with your environment, relating with the world around you. And we should give it a chance to maybe be silent for a while and listen to those voices, so we can also maybe learn something from that. So I think that's what...
Is this, Marlou, is this in a way about empathy? Putting yourself in your sort of method as well, putting yourself in other people's shoes in a way, or is it, what is the ambition, sort of the final ambition of the method you are working with?
The main ambition is to feel the sense of urgency. So we try to move away from understanding it, because of course there are a lot of facts and scientific knowledge. It's super important, and absolutely necessary. But these problems that we're facing, they are so complex that there are not a lot of people who completely understand them. So you understand a bit of them, you see facts, but facts don't make you act. They don't make you feel like you need to make a change. So we are looking at other approaches to spark this sense of urgency, to really feel it, and to do something different. And what we are experimenting with is also a way to put that into action. So we're asking participants to write a manifesto, or we asking them to do small local actions and to spark change, to really do something, to feel what is it to do that and not just talk about it.
And before Elizabeth can comment, just a question to clarify. You do this with different types of users or stakeholders. So who are they? Are they representing different cultures, or what is sort of a typical setting for your interventions?
Yeah, for up until now we did it online because it was actually developed in the middle of the pandemic.
Okay.
So we did the second edition of the festival. We were supposed to do beginning of 2020. Of course, everything went online. So we thought, let's do another approach, not a festival. We do like a 6-month program. And from that, we said, okay, we need to create a space to really go into dialogue more with people. So it are very different people. They are all joining on a personal note. It is from mainly Europe, people coming, but some also from Australia. We had participants, but the important thing is that we are not really looking at what they do professionally, because we think that's it's not helpful.
It's secondary.
Yeah, it is about people, because if you start this, if you want to create a space in which people can discuss a knowledge that they're uncomfortable with, or at least they're not an expert in. We are also not an expert in that. That's the point. We are leading learners, we're not teaching. So there are all these strategies that we put in place to make to level the playground. Is that how you say it? Yeah. So we also don't ask them to introduce themselves with their professional background or experience. We ask them to introduce themselves as a person. And then along the way, if you gather for like 6 weeks or whatever, of course you find out it's not that we cannot talk about it. But first and foremost, it are people talking together. And then they can bring that back into their personal life, professional life.
Okay. Thank you, Marlou. Elizabeth, you wanted to say something? Yes. Oh, yeah, let's wait for the microphone. It's coming.
Yes, my name is Elizabeth and I'm from Denmark. And I have been head of the Danish folk high schools for 2 years. So I have met a lot of young people. And 2 years ago, I would say the same as you do, that we need this sense of urgency. But actually, I think the problem for young people is that their sense of urgency is just too big. And they don't know what to do. They have no hope. So I think really that's our biggest problem just now, and I hope to say something more about it tomorrow. So what do you think? I think in my generation, perhaps you're right that we don't have this lack of urgency, but when it comes to young people, everything is urgent to them. But they are not able to do something, they are not able to act.
Yeah, I actually completely agree. That's especially with younger people, very young people. There's a lot of activism there, and you see people, it's not that we need to explain to young people what is the issue with climate change. What we try to do in this format, in this learning community, is also maybe to pretend that we can actually make a change. So, okay, let's pretend for 3 hours a week that what we're doing here is going to change the world. We're just going all the way. Of course, we know it won't, but at least it allows you to actually imagine what it would look like if you would go that far. Because if you start everything with like, this will not happen. You know, there are bigger problems. Well, actually, there are no really a lot of bigger problems in the world, but we need to eat, stuff like that. Of course, it's all true. But I think it's important that to create spaces, a bit of room to pretend that we could actually make a difference, because we need to. So, you know, yeah.
Isn't there a word for what you just described? In a way, you are kind of fooling, playing with the young minds, but on the other hand, what you create is hope. Because
and actively you design imagination.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's also, I was influenced a lot about this meta-modern way of thinking. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it's a way to describe our, they call it the structure of feeling after postmodernism. So that's basically my generation. I'm in my early 30s. So it's described as a characteristic to have like this pendulum kind of movement from being ironic, but also very hopeful. It's this informed naivety that they call it. So it's a way to, we try to not pinpoint ourselves at one spot, you know. Sometimes a gathering is very heavy, very hopeless. You know, we had one on the exact Thursday when Russia invaded Ukraine. So of course, then it's hard to be hopeful. But there are also other gatherings where we just, you know, try to be naive and hopeful. Yeah.
There was a hand there with someone. Yes, go ahead. But wait for the microphone again, so the people behind the streaming can hear all of us as well.
So I just wanted to also ask to clarify. I don't remember your names. Are Elizabeth. So did you say that for young people, such as probably myself then, that the urgency actually creates kind of a paralysis or so, that like talking about action more and more creates like the sense of urgency, and that paralyzes young people, if I'm paraphrasing correctly, yeah? So I think that the problem in that isn't that we're not creating enough understanding for young people, because we do understand and we have talked about it. I think the urgency and the paralysis is actually a cause of too much talking, that we feel paralyzed because we're talking about the urgency constantly, but we're as young people, or at least me, we're given like kind of these few tips like, okay, use less plastic and these kind of things, but you're not given very many concrete options in terms of, okay, well, you can become an activist or whatever, but you don't feel very empowered and know, okay, this is the route that I can take if I really want to take action. So I think that the paralysis might actually be a result of too much talking and not giving enough options of what we can start doing, because we feel a lot of urgency and we feel a lot of motivation to do something, but we're not given many options to do, I think.
Okay, thank you. That was an excellent comment and analysis as well. Elizabeth, do you want to react to that?
No, because I agree.
Okay. So Elizabeth agrees. What I'm thinking here is that that's very interesting what you said, but also a question to you as a young person would be that you certainly feel you have the sense of urgency. You said that young people talk about this a lot. And they have a lot of knowledge. At least I know from my sons that they have a lot of knowledge as well. But when you say that you are not given, young people are not given options, who to act, if I understand correctly. What is your thinking? Whose responsibility is it to create the options? Who should create the options for young people?
That's a very big question.
Or a very simple one, either or.
we have an opinion next to me, and then I'm going to think about it.
Okay, good.
I think young people are generally very conditioned into thinking what is not possible by their parents and everybody around them, society conditioning them to, well, basically be afraid of strangers, whatever. And that leads to a big lack of imagination because we actually need like very huge solutions to this, which impact our lives very severely. And young people will not be thinking that that is possible because of the way they're thinking, because of the way they are making their homework. They are like basically a slave to the system. And they will become the people who condition the next generation. So the cycle will be repeated. Hence, I believe we just have to like come together and imagine actual solutions. Maybe companies thinking about like, well, let's just close our business, use all our treasury to restore nature and dissolve, something like that, you know. And like no one's doing that.
But
like,
actually, a very quick question to that is that that's exactly what designers and design does. Imagine new solutions all the time.
Exactly. That's why this is interesting.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's very funny that we always end up in this kind of discussion when you talk about climate change. And I have had a burning question for the past years that I can have the chance now to say out loud to my colleagues and all the audience. Do you see it more a problem of top down or bottom up or both? How do you comment on that? And to everyone, this is, I have been thinking, because it's really important, and also from design point of view, that we tackle the problem right. If we don't tackle the problem right, we are just wasting time, and we don't have time to waste time.
But we have to tackle it anyway. So we will not know if we do it right, because we have no means to imagine how to do it right at this moment. So at least we should try, because if we're going on like this, it's like disaster anyways.
Exactly. Like I'm a chess player, like a very strong one, and very often you don't really know what's the right move. So like it doesn't matter. You just have to like make a move at some point.
Yeah. Yes. You comment, and then we come back here. Yes.
So relating to the top-down and bottom-up approaches, I also think they influence each other strongly. Like, for example, if you're just talking on economic incentives, if a government sees, or even just companies see, that there's a large incentive in people to buy things that are sustainably made and that consumers care about this more, then it will also come top down, because companies have to react, governments have to react. So I think it's right what you say, that it doesn't really matter, we just have to get started in any ways, and then they will kind of balance each other out, I think.
Can I make one quick comment? And then
yes. Okay. Go ahead.
I think also that it's very important to realize that we can actually change the system. So we're used to thinking about the system being as it is, and yeah, it's a system. But if the pandemic also showed us one thing, that you can very quickly decide from a governmental perspective to do things differently. You can decide from tomorrow on, we are not flying. From tomorrow on, we are not taking a car, one person going to the office, to sit there behind a laptop, to do stuff that you can do at home. These are decisions that you can make. You can make the decision to go off fossil fuels. It's not going to be pretty or nice or fine or bright and shiny, but it's necessary. So I think that we should really be careful to, this, like, is it bottom up? Is it top down? Well, top down would be the quickest approach, so that's what we need to do. We don't have time to go through bottom up. We are running out.
My experience, though, is that, and partly I think, Ersten, the question is wrong, is this top down or bottom up? Because it's both. Yeah. We are dealing with a systemic challenge, which means that it's a very complicated, multi-layered, multi-structured challenge. So it's both. But also my experience, I'm an old person already, my experience is that the quickest way to come up with solutions is to do it both ways. Because if it happens both ways, you meet somewhere in the middle. And it doesn't matter if you meet halfway, but when you meet, it's tackled quite often. Maybe not exactly correctly, but you have solutions. Okay, you had clearly, I think, José, you had something in your mind as well?
Yes, I mean, as everyone was talking, I find this conversation very interesting on several aspects. And we tackled several topics or subtopics while we were all talking now that I think are very interesting. I'll try to kind of summarize them all. I think one important aspect to consider, at least this is my personal opinion. Firstly, I agree with what you were saying. That's what I was about to comment. I think it should be, I think, first of all, mankind, I don't want to talk about generations, my generation, older generation to come, because in this type of conversations, I found that that tends to difficult things more than help, because then human beings in general, they have a tendency to start pointing fingers, and you get nowhere doing that, I think, in my opinion. So I think, first of all, it should be a joint effort. It should be top institutions and corporations starting to change, sustainable, in a sustainable way, meaning that it can further help climate, of course, but also sustainable economically. Because as we were also discussing here, the train needs to keep moving. You know, people need to work, people need to have an activity, people need to have a life, and that needs to coexist in parallel with our planet. At the same time, I think thinking bottom up, or at least I think all from us here that has, maybe we think that we have a little impact on what we do on our daily basis, what we eat, how we get to work, what kind of activities we perform, what we buy, the way we discard what we buy. I mean, it might sound in our own context, our own small reality, small, but it's not small, because it's around 8 billion people in the world that jointly, contribute to all of these situations. So I like to think that we are all in the same boat together. We need to, stop pointing fingers and start acting. In that way, I agree with what you were saying on the top there. But then another question arises. So, okay, we want to start acting. How do we do it? A couple of things are already coming in place. I don't know, like electric cars, more sustainable energies. But that's the thing with every new invention. Electric car comes up. Okay, how do electric cars move? Okay, electricity that comes from other sources. Might be clean sources, might not be so much clean sources. Then you have the batteries. Okay, batteries pollute as well. Extraction, then discarding. Okay, human being has a tendency to complicate things too much. Of course, that's part of the process. And I think that kind of correlates with what we were saying on. I think we don't need to be afraid of going, just going and try. We've done it in the past. I'm going to say an example. Maybe it's not exactly fitting here, or it's my analogy. At least in our country, in Portugal, we had a time in our discovery era where we also didn't know what was across the sea. We just went. And we had no way of knowing what was coming. Same now as the universe research, like how is it going to be to go to Mars? We have already some aspects to it, but we have no idea really what's going to happen when we step foot on that planet. Is it even the right direction to go? Is it even worth it? There's always these questions, and of course, this seems like a long conversation, a long speech, and in this, I think maybe 5 minutes, 10 minutes, we were not doing anything. And this thinking on when we are talking that we are not producing anything or doing anything, then I agree with you no, we are doing something. We are talking about it. For example, I like to talk about this with my friends or family at home. I think it's brain food. It's great. Now I'm having the chance to do it with you here. So I think it's great. It's how you change mentalities. Maybe something of what I say might be of use to you, and I'm grasping everything that you say. It's also of use to me. That's how we learn, exchanging experiences. it's a complement of another thing that I think it's important as well now to conclude, which is baby steps. You know, this is a big elephant that we need to eat per se. It's so big that you need to do it by parts, and everyone has a part to do. I think that's like what we can take from here is like everyone has their own part. We just need to do it. And in terms of, for me personally, I always find it more inspiring to have a kind of a healthy competition. When I see others succeed, I constantly think to myself, okay, that person managed to do that. Okay, what can I do like to match or even to better? Like, let's think about interesting things we can do. Instead of, okay, that person did that, but you know, how did that person really did that? Was with someone else's money or funding, or that company did that, but on the same time in the back they are doing that. I mean, that kind of thinking is, you know, is tricky. I think so. To conclude, baby steps. You were mentioning alternatives. For example, now the big question: fossil fuels versus electric cars or other alternatives. I mean, we want to stop using fossil fuels, but at the same time, public transportation still needs a lot of work. I'm speaking at least in Portugal, still needs a lot of work. Electric cars, as I said, they are an upgrade, but not a final solution. So maybe having different alternatives as well, maybe help people to transition better from fossil fuels to electric cars might help as well. I mean, I don't have an idea how it's working now in Finland or in other countries. At least in Portugal, that transition is being hard to happen. The only electric cars you see are from environmental funds that only public institutions or corporations have. Like, for example, myself, I cannot get an electric car right now. It's impossible. I mean, I'm not saying I'm the savior of the country, but a small action I'm doing now. Gas is so pricey, and even before I started doing that, I go by metro to work. I use the cars for emergencies and whenever I need to leave Porto. It's a small step, but maybe it's something. I mean, compared to a few years ago, I was driving to work every day. Now I'm not anymore. So it's a bit, I don't know, my brother is going vegan, maybe I'll go too in the future. I mean, baby steps. If we all do this, I think 9 billion people like,
9 billion
might have a weight.
Will rock the world.
I don't know. I think someone wanted to say something.
Yes, go. Okay, first you up there, and then is it Mikko?
Yes, Mikko.
Yeah. So, but you have the microphone already. Is it okay? Good. Go ahead, Mikko.
Yeah. So hi, Mikko Hauru. Just a short comment. Thanks for the great talks and presentations. There was somebody in the back in the audience saying that consumers and customers are ready to pay for any kind of service which, if it creates value and kind of it's in environmental, but also can be economical solutions. So what we are doing is we are taking baby steps in city of Oulu, where I have a waste collection company, so recycling company. So we are doing a smart waste collection, so that we can provide in our region the household customers an application where they can order the bin empty whenever they want. So it's not any rotation rhythm or going to empty overfill or empty bins, and also we have sensors. So in my experience, in the past 2 years, the customers are ready to pay for this kind of service, which also creates added value with our way to collect this waste in smart way. And I have seen positive. Nice example was that I sent one offer to customer in Oulu, and the response was immediately that, is this really possible that somebody can have an application and communicate to our company through cloud that I would like you to empty this bin now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mikko. I just want to comment on Mikko's story that I also believe that through sharing your case is a local business at the moment, at least. So you are not changing the world, but you are changing your own local environment. And who knows, maybe that will have a sort of a spillover effect. Either you become a really huge, big business, the number one in the world, but maybe not. But maybe your example inspires someone else to do it better, or to do the way you do, which is a great example. So I think there's a lot of truth in what you have been saying about the small steps and baby steps, and the urgency in that we need to take actions, even if we don't know if they are the right ones or the wrong ones. But you had a comment up there as well.
Yeah, but first of all, I would like to say that this step into the unknown is really cool. Yeah, that's definitely how we should tackle this. But then again, like the lack of imagination is again, like I can hear it, and like I mean, the best thing is not an electric car; it's to live closer together, to just get people to move away, go to a city or something, and then like I mean, then we just don't even need a car. But then again, like companies cannot make profit, which is probably the reason why we're not promoting this. But that would be the real, like let's move everybody to Helsinki and yeah, I see you like shaking your head, but it's
I'm not moving to Helsinki under any conditions.
And I
lived
and I
there for
understand
35
that
years.
because the problem with that is because we all have our home, we have our
exactly.
we have our space, and
You're
that's
hitting the
ours.
point.
That's actually it's creating you. It creates who you are, your home. So that's the reason why we don't want this. Nobody wants that. Like why? Like if that wasn't the problem, everybody would move from Ukraine and be like, oh yeah, congratulations with your country, Russia. So like, and but this is actually a solution, but nobody's talking about it.
Yeah, that's an interesting approach, because there's research that supports what you're saying, that we should all move to cities and live very densely together. And then there's research who says that that's not true. So of course it's not, you have different...
But how? Like it hasn't been done yet.
So are you proposing a global experiment where we would all move to one place?
Well, we would move close together. Or, well, maybe one place would be great, yeah.
Okay.
Awesome.
Right.
That's not very suitable for Finnish people.
Sorry?
That's not very suitable for Finnish people.
This is a home argument. You want to like
but
save the world, right? It's not about like what's suitable for Finnish people. It's about saving the world here. Come on.
True. But also what we need to remember here is that the world and our place in it, and I'm not talking about home or this specific location, is related to so many issues that the whole picture, the whole big picture, finding best possible solutions to solve, let's say, climate change mitigation, is that it's a challenge also because it's so complicated. And it's also because you can't say to people that we are all the same. And the system.
I'm not saying that.
Yeah. No, I'm not speaking about you. I'm using you as sort of a general sense.
No. But also like the people. Like if you live close together, it doesn't mean you're the same.
True. But I mean that not everyone agrees. And they have a right not to agree that we should all live in the same place. Because the challenge with that kind of a change is that it would have to be dictated. It would not be based on free will.
Exactly.
And that is, again, a bigger question on our societal models. Should we change from democracies to dictatorships?
But I am
in the end.
I am saying here that like I mean over there the point was made. Well, if it's top down, if like with Corona we can do it, we could do it, and with Corona you would definitely be in favor of this dictatorship.
Well, I think maybe to just I think top down is the fastest solution, of course. And I think it's important that we are aware that it can be done. Of course, it would be better if we, find something that would suit everyone. Because with the, of course, the corona restrictions, and I'm just talking about the Dutch perspective because I'm not sure how it is here, but a lot has not been taken into account. Also, a lot was wrong. It is easy to say stay at home to people who have a home with a garden, with a place and a safe home environment where there's no aggression. Then it's easy. For me it was easy, but for a lot of people it's also very hard. So I'm not saying like let's just do that now, but I think we need to. It's good to be aware that we made this system, and I think for me it comes back to the economy, because a lot of what people here are saying is yes, but we need to earn money, we need to live there. Yeah, of course, within the system that we created, it is necessary to sustain our way of living that we have now. Of course, it's very hard to think about solutions.
Of course,
then we have to make electrical cars.
But I know I'm very naive in what I'm saying. Like I'm not stupid, but like the thing is, like it's very easy to get trapped in your own like day-to-day living and make only solutions for that and not use like the imagination of a very stupid naive person.
I completely agree with that, because that's if we keep imagining solutions within the, for me especially, the capitalistic economic framework that we have now, we probably won't get anywhere, because that framework is not sustainable. It's extractive. It's not social. It's not just. This we all know. So if we want the opposite, we should also be, how do you say that? That we should be aware that that takes a sacrifice, but we should be willing to take that sacrifice if we really want something else.
Now we have 5 minutes left. Unfortunately, we are limited with the time because this could go on for a longer time. You had a comment there, so that will be the last comment from the audience. Did you? Or did I? No, not you, but the young lady there. So you have a quick comment, and then what I ask from you for is a one-sentence piece of advice to the young people. Or not maybe advice, but something you think that the young people especially could do in this situation. One sentence feeling of how you think they could sort of start coping with the situation in a positive way. And that will then be the closing of this session, and there will be half an hour break if you want to come back to follow the BRP design competition launch. And there will be refreshments in between. And tomorrow, 2 more dialogues. But now, what did you want to say?
I just wanted to respond to your point on saying, like, in this theoretical scenario of everyone moving to one big city, there are people that don't want to move to that big city. Well, there are also people that didn't want women to vote and these kind of things. And we made a decision that this is what's better for us, and the majority thinks that's better. And so some people that didn't like this idea had to make the sacrifice for living in the society that they do to give up on this preference that they had. And I think similarly, even though some policies that we might have to incorporate to in any way try to reduce the amount of warming that we're having, we have to make sacrifices. And I think that's also one of the biggest economic problems that you're saying, is that we're living in a capitalistic society, and we're not really living in a place where many of us are saying we accept that we would have a lower standard of living maybe in order to deal with this problem. But I think that is a very real kind of scenario that we might have to look at, that our standards of living are very high, and maybe we can scrape off a bit of it and give it to the climate. And that might have to be incorporated from a more of a top-down, because I think a lot of people are not going to do this by themselves when they see everyone around them not doing it. Yeah,
you're absolutely correct. And what you're describing actually is the complexity of the whole situation. And therefore, there's no easy answers either. But you might be absolutely correct that this is the way we need to go. But let's hear what you want to sort of share as the final word with the audience and everyone there behind the stream as well. Maybe let's yes, Erson starts.
I found this piece of presentation from a Norwegian service designer, which says people, planet, and profit. There's no sustainability without the triple bottom line, and it's one of the most meaningful pieces I've seen. And actually, it tells that we have to combine these three pillars in order to match or to achieve sustainability. And the case of Mikko's company and all the discussions, I think, led to that we have to touch upon our social structures, planet, environment, and then also profit. We cannot just skip any of these. And there is huge potential there, to be honest. There is huge potential which is untapped. It's just who is the boldest and bravest to chase this direction. So I think that's my conclusion of it. And regarding the young people, I would just say that critical thinking, I don't know if it's so complex term for young people, critical thinking, but critical thinking is really essential to make sure that we don't end up in the same mistakes that we have been making for the past centuries, and innovating for the sake of innovating or developing for the sake of developing. That's again wrong. We need to foster more and more critical thinking.
Thank you, Erson. Miikka.
Yes, well, I have nothing new, but I would say that use your imagination and share your voice, because that's how the change is going to be made.
Sharing the voice. Thank you, Mika. Then José, and then Marlou, the last.
Yeah, maybe if I can.
Brief.
Very brief.
Yes,
so
very brief.
Firstly, responding to a lot of what we were discussing here, and taking what you were saying now about, for example, all humans moving together into one place. I mean, it can be different, can be that. Bottom line, in my opinion, is, in you study philosophy, so probably you know this, so my freedom ends when yours begins. You know, so this is, I think, something to take into account, and having respect for everyone, above all, when you're thinking. Then I think it's just basically, yeah, it's what I've mentioned. So baby steps, doing something that can make you feel like you're taking action. That's
Thank
what
you.
I would say.
Thank you, José. And Marlou, you have the last word, except that I have the last
Yes,
word, but
you
you
will
have the
last
second
word.
last.
I think what we need, and I would encourage everyone to have that, but I'm borrowing these words from one of the artists we've worked with a couple of years ago, but it's radical imagination. So be bold, be radical, and be loud, I would say.
Thank you, Marlou. A good ending to the great discussion and dialogue. And I think what this discussion shows is that we need to discuss, because the complexity can only be handled for us when we try to get a grasp of it, however difficult it is. So I thank you, all of you four invited experts, Marlou, Erson, Mika, and José, and every one of you, because you took part in the dialogue, and I admire and appreciate that a lot. There will be half an hour break. We will be back here for the BRP Design Competition launch 17:30 sharp. So, but before that, refreshments, if you like to join us for sharing them, and the dialogues continue tomorrow. So we did not end the topic or empty the topic. We will continue tomorrow with 2 more dialogues. Thank you very much.